Sheena Ringo, and we are continuing what I must describe as probably the most chaotic ever track by track listen through to an album you've ever heard as we continue our track by track listen through to Show So Strip. Right, there's a couple of things I need to catch you up on before we get into the next song, Stoicism, which might itself only be an interlude as I look at it being 1 minute 47 seconds long. If it is, then I guess we'll be doing that and the next track. I feel like we're going to be doing two tracks in this reaction. That's all I can say. What I will tell you to catch you up is you might have noticed that the last song that I uploaded a reaction to was Identity. Why did I skip over Crime and Punishment? Well, as you've been watching this channel for a while, you might know I actually reacted to Crime and Punishment before I started this track by track reaction to the album. So as a result, there is a reaction to Crime and Punishment on this channel, but it's an old one. You have to go check that out as well. I'll try to put that in the playlist for this track by track reaction. Right, that bit's out of the way. But here's the interesting thing. Someone actually told me the version of Crime and Punishment on the album is different from the music video version. So if you're wondering, Howard, why didn't you go react to the album version as well? I did. I've recorded me reacting to the album version as well, but it was really the only difference was it was about 45 seconds longer and it had an extended ending on it. So I'm going to quickly talk about that extended ending on the album version of Crime and Punishment before we get into this reaction, which is probably going to be to two tracks. I don't know yet. Let's find out in a moment. Right. Following? Are you following this? I'm barely following this. I hope you are. Right, so in regards to the slightly longer ending to the album version of Crime and Punishment, yes, in a way, I kind of like it. The song, one of the interesting things that makes Gips and Crime and Punishment quite similar is that both of them are very much more leaning into the mid-tempo cathartic rock territory in a way that most of the rest of the album seemingly isn't. You know, they do really feel like Gips and Crime and Punishment almost come from a totally different session, like they were recorded at a separate time. Maybe Sheena Ringo had one session where she did most of this album and another session where she did stuff like Crime and Punishment, Gips, maybe Identity as well, those slightly more rock songs. Who knows? It could just be the natural variation of the album, but it is interesting how those songs have a very different vibe. Now, the reason I bring that up is because Crime and Punishment is a song that is just this kind of swinging, slow, mid-tempo burst of expression. You can tell it in the rolled R's that she has in the first verse and the kind of cracking of Sheena Ringo's voice. And so in a way, having that extended outro, was I saying intro? Outro to the song, I actually think that's quite cool. I like the fact that it goes quiet, fades down like the single version, and then it bursts out again and goes really loud again. My only critique of that actually is I felt like the album version didn't quite pull it off as well as I thought. Now let me explain that. The single version, it just fades out on the whistling and everything goes quiet, and it's like the song just kind of like, it's whistling and it walks off down an alleyway into the night and it just fades away. Whereas the album version, it bursts into the loudness again and, oh, we're going to go around one more time. But then it quickly goes into the fade. I felt like if you were going to go into the loudness one more time, have one big more cathartic burst, they should have just lent into it and just done another minute of that. You know, just really let it play out for much longer. Have some wild screeching guitar solos, have some weird noise stuff, and then naturally then take that and turn that into the weird kind of noise sound effects thing that this album, Show So Strip, is using to connect each of the songs. As we've already remarked, every single song in this album ends with kind of like a crackling, weird noise building up, which is how the songs link. So they could have done that with Crime and Punishment. They could have just played it out on this long, extended, noisy, just blast of sound and just allowed people to really just zone out and go crazy to it. And then have that just meld and morph into a distorted ending and then have the song suddenly end. So for me, the album version felt weirdly indecisive. Like, okay, maybe the single version is a bit too short. I mean, it doesn't feel that. If that's the only version you know, it feels fine. But maybe it's shorter than it potentially could have been. But at least it felt concise. At least it felt sure of when its ending was. The album version doesn't seem to feel sure of when its ending is. It just suddenly bursts back out and then not very long and then fades out. But even then it fades out and then it comes back in with the distortion. Just the ending of the album version, I've got to be honest, I like the concept more than the execution. I think that's a really cool way to end the song, but I think there would be better ways of doing it. Anyway, I've already spent 5 minutes talking about the song that we're not even doing the reaction to. The other thing I was going to point out, just in case anyone's wondering, yes, I have subsequently found out that a lot of songs like Identity that I did a reaction to actually have music videos that I didn't know at the time. I'm probably, due to the fact that it appears that Sheena Ringo has a lot of music videos that are not on the official channel, I'm probably going to leave it until I've gone through all of the albums, done the track by track, and then just sort of circle around and maybe do a marathon of the music videos, just reacting to the music videos, because I feel like that might be funny to do on its own right. But for now, I'm just going to continue with whatever they put in this. This is the official Sheena Ringo YouTube channel page, release section, album, discography list. I'm gonna go with this playlist. Let's see what happens. Next song is Stoicism. If it is a 1 minute 47 second song, that is the reaction you're going to be watching. If it's not, then we'll do that and go straight into the next song. You'll probably already know because you've already clicked in this video. You know what the title is. Let's go. Love that tape wobble. That is such a weirdly effective mixture of sounds. Key change was almost. I'm not going to disrespect that by calling that an interlude. That is one of my favourite things I've heard on the album so far. And you're probably thinking that I'm insane. I mean, after the intro, it probably is justified. However, I have to say, there is something very interesting. I mean, apart from the fact this song is clearly structured with verses and choruses, it is a song. And it's a song with a really interesting kind of vibe. Now, here's the thing. I've said about a lot of this album thus far, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure that this is going to function as an interlude. I'm sure it's going to burst into the next song, but I just want to address this first of all, because there's something about the fact that this album thus far has kind of felt like it has played around with some interesting production, and some of the production has been really very effective. A lot of it feels very much of its time. You know, you really get the sense that the songs you're hearing have that kind of, I should say, turn of the millennium J-pop style of production. You know, quite heavy compression, a lot of slightly in-your-face effects, and yet a real sense of creativity and experimentation. This one, however, is the first one where I felt like the production has not just been experimental, but it's actually lent over into the point of doing something truly quite unique, because this is a song almost entirely crafted from production. Like, when you're listening to this, it's just like hearing a song that is entirely formed from the effects. Now, yeah, of course, I'm still aware. You still have production. You still have percussion. You still have notation. You still have vocals. And yet, if you listen to the vocals, for example, I mean, the vocals are barely saying words. There might have been words in there, but basically it sounded almost like that language that You might remember there was that game, The Sims. I'm sure most people have probably heard of that game. And the characters in that game didn't speak a language. It was like a garbled set of syllables that was designed to sound like a language, but it wasn't. It was just random chatter, and I think they ended up calling it like Simglish or something like that. And it became a shorthand thing that a lot of other games would do to simulate speech without actually having to have characters make noises. And this felt like that. I mean, yes, like I say, there might have been some hidden words in there that I wasn't getting, but it just sounded like there was vocals and there was words, but they weren't really words. It was more like this sort of garbled vocal thing happening. There was percussion, but the percussion itself was very much just like a kind of like a automatic drum machine loop effect, not too far off of just simply being the electronic metronome you have yourself, which I mean, this actually could well be the metronome from a piece of software. Let's have a listen again. That electric tom sound, or that sound, which again, that could be vocally done, that sound is probably the only thing that doesn't sound like an actual metronome. But the percussion in here really just sounds like it's just sort of coming from a very weird place. But actually, what this reminds me of as well is there was a thing that I remember playing around with, and I think other people played around this in the early days of MIDI, which is when you'd open up a piece of drum music in the MIDI field, and when you have your MIDI, so MIDI is, like, in case you don't know, it's electronic music programming. So you open it up and you have all of the notes, and then you basically put the notes on a timeline and they play. I'm sure you can work this all out. You have the same thing for drums, and it also opens up a keyboard, but you'll have one of the notes will be the kick drum, one of the notes will be the snare drum, one of the notes will be the hi-hat, various things. And you could then, if you had a piece of music, sometimes you just take all of those instruments and just move the beats into the wrong thing. So now the kick will play on, say, maybe a rim shot or something like that. And then you'll have the crash will happen instead on like a cowbell. And you move them all around and you get very weird kind of beats. And this is almost what this sounds like. It sounds like someone's opened a normal drum beat, but then put all of the triggers, all of the notes into the wrong spaces, and so you've got the beat, but all of the sounds you're hearing at the different beats are very weird sounds. You listen to the vocal layering in there. You've got sort of multiple layers of vocals. Everything. I mean, that sounds almost like a rap is going on there, but it's kind of so garbled by effects, I'm not quite sure I can make it out. You've got distortion, you've got a modulator in there, then you've got this low part, and then it comes back in. I mean, right back to the beginning. If we start at the beginning, again, it's doing the thing this album likes to do of having everything super wide stereo panned. But I noticed that I'm just checking I've got my headphones on the right way around. The vocal on the right-hand side had that tape warble that I really liked. And then you've got the guitar looping on one side. This is all being constructed again out of loops. The funny thing is, I'm going to hit you with a bit of theory on this. I haven't checked the credits on this song. I know obviously that Sheena Ringo was working with a lot of very creative people in the studio. Obviously she was she was leading the creation of the songs, but she was working with a good team of people around her. A lot of whom she would go on to work with on subsequent projects. But the funny thing is again, this is coming out in around about the year 2000. And this is an era when this is very early, but not too early in the time of home music editing, that there were people editing on computers at home. I remember I was dabbling with music production on a little home 486 pre-Pentium 1 computer at the time. And this is the sort of thing, this is exactly the sort of music that you would have done in that era. And something about this makes me almost feel like this wasn't done in the studio. Like maybe just like Sheena Ringo just got some weird loops, made some weird sounds, and then just maybe sat and edited them on a computer somewhere else. Or maybe she was in the studio but just sat on the computer and just dabbled around with something. This to me really feels like a song that was created just from someone having fun with a couple of loops that they'd taken, maybe just got someone to play a couple of notes of guitar and just put it all in there. Maybe took that vocal effect, moved it through a modulator for a bit of a laugh, and just put all of these little loops into a computer and mix them up. That's what this feels like to me. And that, to me, is... that's the kind of thing that I find very inspiring. That's the kind of thing that I, as I say, remember working with when I was getting into songwriting. That's the sort of thing that I remember other people around me playing with. It's the sort of production that I remember being so interesting and so many people doing. And yeah, it's really genuinely very, how to put it? It's very, it's inspiring, but it's very fresh. And as I mentioned, a lot of the production up until this point on this album is great, but it definitely feels very much as though it's of its time. It's occasionally experimental, but not so experimental as to really feel particularly unusual for the era that it's in. Maybe forward thinking, but not super unusual. This is probably the first song I've heard of the production leaning songs on this album where it really, you can really get the sense of the creative mind sitting there just dabbling, playing, experimenting, messing around with some things. And do you know what the weirdest thing is? That chorus is garbled madness with no clear form. And yet there's harmonies, there's melody, there's a beat. You can clap along to it. You can sing along to it. You can tap your foot to it. I mean, you can sing along to it. God knows what they're saying, but you can enjoy it like a normal song. And yet there is so much garbled madness going on here, but it's very well formed. Straight up, that's one of my favourite songs on the album so far. This is going to be the weirdest track-by-track review of any album ever. Thank you for joining me. Get in the comments, tell me what you're thinking until I hopefully see you very soon for the next one of these. For now. Ciao, ciao.